What's good enough for the Himalayas has to be good enough for our 1000 PS HOTLAP test track. We've taken the brand new Royal Enfield Bullet 350 out for a spin. Stay tuned. Yep, every bike that lands in the 1000 PS garage has to go through the test track. And that includes the Bullet 350, a classic motorcycle from India by the likeable brand Royal Enfield, who are really stepping on the gas in Europe. Recently, they even opened a new branch in Germany to serve the market even better. Let's kick things off with a seating test so we can properly figure out where this bike fits. Now, I wouldn't quite call it a cruiser, but I wouldn't label it a retro naked bike either. It's more of a retro cruiser hybrid. Let's just call it a mix of both categories. You've got a pretty relaxed upper body position. The knee angle is easygoing and your feet are positioned a bit further forward, but it still feels noticeably sportier. On a proper cruiser, it's definitely more laid back than this. The Bullet 350 badge is smiling back at me in a friendly way. And when it comes to the controls, well, it's clear we're getting a bit of a home-cooked feel. It's a lower price segment and a smaller displacement class. But when you look at the tank, the paintwork and some of the details, there's definitely something to enjoy with this bike. Even the engine with those laid-back cooling fins gives off a cool vibe and is pleasing to look at. Whereas with the controls or things like these screws here, yeah, you notice that it's aimed at a more budget-conscious class. So I went into the test lab with pretty mixed feelings because bikes like this can often be absolute punishment to ride, just a rolling pile of scrap metal in many cases. But that wasn't the case with the Royal Enfield, not at all. And honestly, I don't even know why I enjoyed being in the saddle so much. It was a chilled out cruise, no sweating, low heart rate, and I have to say, no adrenaline rush. It's not a thrill machine, but it was a good ride. I can't say it was torture, but I also wouldn't call it boring. It was a nice, easygoing motorcycle ride, and I think people often say Royal Enfield is an authentic brand. And that's exactly how it felt. It didn't feel like a cheap piece of kit just because it wasn't made for the racetrack. It felt respectable, something you can still ride in a spirited way. That really just slipped out of my mouth there. I rode it in a sporty way. You can see that the toe sliders on the foot pegs got scraped pretty quickly because, of course, lean angle clearance is a bit limited on these classic bikes. But I found my groove, got into my rhythm, felt comfortable in the saddle, and had a blast leaning through those corners. The brakes do have a slightly mushy bite point, And yeah, that's not unusual in this category of bike. I wouldn't even mention it if it weren't just a little spongier than usual. That was a bit annoying when riding more aggressively because you're never quite sure how much braking power you're actually applying. On the other hand, the throttle response was good. And even though the engine feels a bit sluggish at first, after a few laps it warmed up and you start to unlock the performance you need to flow reasonably well around the course. The engine is honestly a very likable unit. It's the look, it's those subtle vibrations. They're not annoying, but they're there. It's the sound, the way it revs. I can't quite put my finger on it, but somehow it thumps right into your heart. I've only really had that same feeling on a Harley Davidson saddle where I give it a kind of charisma bonus, and I'm happy to do the same with the Royal Enfield. It's a charming motorcycle. You hop off and say, hey, that was a great ride. I don't think the lap time was especially good, partly due to the lean angle clearance and partly because the engine doesn't rev out in a punchy way. So accelerating out of tight corners wasn't exactly its big strength. On the other hand, probably still more respectable than quite a few other cruiser-type bikes. And overall, a bike that's perfectly usable in everyday riding, one you can have a proper ride on, and where, at a sensible price, you really do get a lot of joy out of being in the saddle. But now it's your stage, folks. What do you think of the Royal Enfield Bullet 350? Let us know in the comments below. We keep enriching our videos with your input. Thanks, cheers, and see you next time on 1000 PS TV.